Tonight on the Beautiful Dead podcast, we're going to be talking about a movie that is a huge part of my childhood, Monster Squad. I'd be shocked if you haven't seen it, so please make sure you tell me down below what your favorite quote is from the Monster Squad, and I'll make sure as I do my review that I tell you mine.
I couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster that breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena Nazari. Listen, go to lenanazari.com. Click on appearances and that's where you can find out like where I'll be. Click on Fanged Family and you can sign up for my mailing list. They get to find out before anyone else what I'm doing, where I'm going to be. They get updates on the screenplay and the new book and all that stuff. I will be at Monster Mania next weekend. This is an old con for me. This will be my third or fourth time going there. We have so much fun at Monster Mania. And I'll be right across from Tony from Hack the Movies, who you saw me talk about Nosferatu with in October. So come by and say hi to both of us, please. All right, I'm going to jump right in because I'm just so excited to be back to our usual format. I had so much fun in spooky season doing the special episodes. We did the vampire history class with Professor Mark. We did the 60s and 70s with Tony, the 80s and 90s with Jacob Gibbons. We did the 2000s to now with Francis from the Boutique du Vampire. So, of course I had a blast, and also ghost hunting. I mean, how fun was that? So, but it's always nice to come back to the usual and just talk about the things I love, which is movies, TV series, books, all that good vampire stuff. Now, I have heard from you guys who really liked sort of the step away from this format, so I'm going to incorporate more of that throughout the year. But for this month, which will be the last month of this season, and then I'll take a break in December, we're going to do 2 movies and 2 books. So, very, very exciting. All right, because it is the first of the month, let's talk about my tarot for November, and that is the 10 of Pentacles upright. So I'm just going to read you exactly what my tarot reader said, and you can find the link to her down in the video description. The 10 of Pentacles heralds great accomplishment and success. In regards to your career, this Pentacle card predicts that you are soon to reach a positive turning point in your career. It can represent stability and certainty, highlighting that you have established a solid foundation for your career path. The 10 of Pentacles tells me you're a person with high ambitions who wants to go all the way to the top. I suspect that this month you will be feeling very positive about the future of your career. You might have a new plan in place. You might be stepping it up or taking on more responsibility. I'm certain if you continue on your current path, success will come. I am currently working on the screenplay of Bite Shift, as well as working on the 5th book, so I sure do hope that this card is talking about me getting an offer on the screenplay. If that happened, that would be incredible. And trust me, you'll know. It will be make sure you're following me on Instagram because that's where I update everything like the fastest. Instagram gets to see it really as soon as it pops in my little noggin or happens. So make sure you're following me on Instagram, the Beautiful Dead podcast. Excuse me, when I'm recording this, I've just gotten back from being in Nashville doing a collab with Playhouse 615 and their Dracula cast. Oh my gosh, speaking of Instagram, I had so much fun. I've never had so much fun at an appearance ever in my whole life. So if any of you are watching, I love you. It was amazing. We are totally bonded now. That is for real, for real. All right, let's jump in and talk about the movie. So this movie has been on my to-do list since I started the podcast 4 years ago. I don't know why I haven't done it, but when I was talking to Jacob doing the 80s and 90s and we mentioned it, I was just like, okay, I have to do this movie. I have to go back, watch it again. I have to talk about it on the podcast. I will say it was a little difficult because who wants to like break down and review one of their favorite movies from childhood? But I take this podcast very seriously, and we need to talk about Dracula in the Monster Squad, and then I can go back to just watching it with a big smile on my face and remembering all of the joy it brought me when I was a child. Okay, so if you've never seen the Monster Squad, where have you been? And massive spoiler alerts, okay? I ruin everything. I talk about who gets killed, I talk about who gets turned, I talk about all that stuff. We are going to do a summary, and that way you can follow along in case you haven't seen it in a while, or I don't know, you've never seen it and you just want to hear me talk about it, which is totally fine if that's what brings you here. But let's talk about it, and then I'm going to break it down. And I'll tell you something. I was surprised by something in this movie, something I never caught before, and we're going to talk about it. As well as, please tell me what your favorite quote is. My favorite quote is, "Give me back the amulet, you bitch!" That's my favorite part. That's what he wrote on the autographed, because I got to meet him. And I was like, oh my God, this is like making my whole life right now. And he wrote that for me, and he's amazing. And I took a picture, and I'm probably putting it on YouTube so you get to see it. All right. The Monster Squad is a club of preteens who idolize the Universal classic monster movies and their non-human stars. Club leader Sean, whose younger sister Phoebe desperately wants to join the club, is given the diary of a legendary monster hunter, Dr. Abraham Van Helsing. But his excitement abates when he finds it is written in German. Sean and the rest of the Monster Squad, his best friend and second in command Patrick, clumsy Horace, tough older kid Rudy, and little Eugene, go to visit an elderly man known as the Scary German Guy, who's actually a kind gentleman and a former concentration camp prisoner. Yeah, I did not catch that either. We're going to talk about it. And he translates the diary. The diary describes an amulet that is comprised of concentrated good. One day out of every century, as the forces of good and evil reach a balance, the otherwise indestructible amulet becomes vulnerable. With the next day of balance happening within a few days at the stroke of midnight, the children realize they must gain possession of the amulet and use it with an incantation from Van Helsing's diary to open a wormhole in the universe and cast the monsters into limbo. It's a lot for little kids, huh? As shown in the film's prelude, Van Helsing had unsuccessfully attempted this 100 years ago to defeat his old adversary Count Dracula. His apprentices then immigrated to the U.S. to hide the amulet out of Dracula's reach. Nevertheless, Dracula seeks to obtain the amulet so he can take over the world. I mean, of course, what else is he going to do with eternity? To this end, he assembles several monstrous allies: the Mummy, the Gill Man, the Wolfman, and 3 schoolgirls whom the Count transforms into his vampiric consorts. Yeah, didn't catch that when I was younger. Dracula then steals a crate containing Frankenstein's monster from a B-25 Mitchell in flight, thus completing his army. However, Frankenstein's monster is reluctant to aid Dracula and wanders into the forest where he encounters Phoebe. Rather than being afraid, she shows him the kindness he has always sought, and they become friends. After Phoebe proves to the Monster Squad that Frankenstein's monster is not evil, he chooses to help the boys instead of Dracula. The amulet is buried in a stone room beneath a house that Dracula and the other monsters now occupy, where Van Helsing's diary was found. The room is littered with wards which prevent the monsters from taking it. The Monster Squad breaks into the house, acquires the amulet, and narrowly escapes Dracula's grasp. They confer with Scary German Guy, who informs them that the incantation must be read by a female virgin. In revenge for their meddling, Dracula destroys the squad's clubhouse, thereby drawing police detective Crenshaw, who is Sean and Phoebe's dad, into the fray. As midnight approaches, the squad makes their way to the local cathedral to make their last stand. The doors to the cathedral are locked, so the incantation must be read on the stoop, leaving the squad vulnerable. They enlist Patrick's elder sister Lisa to help them, as she's the only virgin they know, but the incantation fails since Lisa is not actually a virgin anymore. As the monsters close in, the squad deduces that Phoebe must complete the task of opening the portal, and scary German guy attempts to help her read the incantation while the squad and detective fends off the monsters. In the ensuing battle, Dracula's consorts are all defeated. Dracula arrives to destroy the amulet while Frankenstein's monster intervenes, impaling him on a wrought iron cross. Phoebe finishes the incantation, opening the portal, which begins to consume the bodies of the monsters. Dracula, still alive, attempts to drag Sean with him, but Sean impales Dracula with a wooden stake, and Crenshaw grabs Sean before he gets pulled in with Dracula. Having briefly escaped from limbo, Van Helsing appears and pulls Dracula to his doom. As Frankenstein's monster is drawn into the portal, Phoebe holds onto him and pleads for him to stay. Knowing he does not belong on Earth, Frankenstein's monster lets go of Phoebe's hand, but accepts her gift of a stuffed animal to remember her by. The portal closes, ensuring the world's safety. It's so funny to read such a thorough description of the movie, because when you're watching it, it just kind of feels very silly. And then when you read the description, you're like, wow, this is a lot and very thorough. All right, let's talk about vampiric crossovers and trivia. Not too many crossovers. I didn't catch any crossovers, but I did catch a trivia piece, which was one of the posters in the clubhouse for the Monster Squad is for Circus of the Vampire, which we covered in Hammer Month, and I said is like my favorite Hammer movie. So now that I'm older and I'm watching it again, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, I know that movie poster. So that was kind of neat. All right, let's go ahead and break down the universe of the Monster Squad. Relationship to humans. Dracula doesn't exactly blend in. It's not like he can walk amongst humans and nobody realizes he's a vampire. His ultimate goal, like I said, is to take over the world, which I can only assume means to wipe out humans. There are humans who know that he exists, you know, humans that are fighting him like Van Helsing and the Monster Squad. But for the most part, you know, the humans in this timeline, in this, I say present, but this movie is 40 years old, they don't think monsters are real until they're faced with them. Relationship to animals is never addressed. Now, we're going to talk about this, but Dracula does turn into a bat. And the Monster Squad has like a dog that hangs around them all the time. The dog doesn't really seem to care about Dracula, so I personally would have loved to see this Dracula like controlling wolves. I think that would have been really cool, but I'm sure they couldn't have wolves around children on set. I'm sure there was a reason, but that would have been cool. Appearance. So Dracula looks exactly like Bela Lugosi's Dracula. So he's got the tux, the medallion, the cape, tall, you know, very menacing looking. And then the brides, you know, 3 women with long hair and flowing white gowns. It is very classic, universal Dracula. Fangs, 2 sharp retractable fangs, as it should be. Blood, we never see him drink blood, but this is a kid's movie, so I can only assume that he does drink blood, considering that he's classic Dracula, but of course they don't show it. food. He is actually burned by garlic. One of the kids has like a piece of pizza wrapped in aluminum foil, and he unwraps it and smacks it on Dracula's face and burns Dracula with garlic. Now, we don't know if he can eat or drink wine. I'm sorry. I had to. It's classic Dracula.
I never drink. Why?
And of course, classic Dracula, these vampires cannot be in the sun. Now, we never see this used against Dracula or the brides, but they only come out in the nighttime. Sleeping. So when we first see Drac, he's a bat. He's in like bat form, and he's hanging upside down from the ceiling, but his brides are sleeping in coffins. Whether he has coffins in this new place here in America, I have no idea, but apparently he can sleep upside down as a bat, and then he turns into a human, which is very convenient. Holy items. He is repelled by crosses. As far as the rules, so the vampires don't cast a reflection. This is only referred to, it's never seen. I don't know if they need invited in. This is also never addressed. The big rule for the monsters in this universe is that every 100 years, the forces of good and evil are perfectly balanced, and then this amulet becomes vulnerable, and if you destroy the amulet, which is concentrated good, then evil can take over, is how it works. Powers. So we see him transform from bat to man and man to bat. He can fly. He's obviously extremely strong because he takes down a whole bunch of cops, one-armed, all by himself, doesn't even look over, doesn't even blink an eye. He must have some kind of power over the other monsters because it's clear that he is in charge. And he gets the Wolfman to do a bunch of stuff that he doesn't want to do, because when the Wolfman is shot, he's like, thank you for putting me out of my misery. As he's preparing to go after the children, he has this like electricity all around him, and then he shoots like a lightning ball at Scary German Guy and like gets him in the heart. Thankfully, Scary German Guy does survive, but it knocks him out. So it's like electricity power or a lightning power. And then at one point in time, he lights a stick of dynamite with his eyes. So we will also give him pyrokinesis. How are they made? So this is never addressed. However, his brides are taken out in the beginning by Abraham Van Helsing, and 100 years later he's here and he makes 3 more brides. So we know that he can make new vampires, and we know that he likes to have 3. I don't know why. It's got to have 3. It's got to be 3. Not 4, not 2, 3. He needs 3 brides. I don't know why. Heartbeat or breathing is never addressed, but again, classic Dracula. How do they die? So in the beginning, one of the brides is killed by a crossbow arrow to the heart. We see stake to the heart. I would assume sunlight, since he never comes out at night. Pretty classic stuff. We do see Dracula shot with a gun, and he comes back, he's fine. And then we see him impaled on an iron gate, comes back, he's fine. So it's not until he gets sucked into this portal that he gets killed. But the brides are pretty classic, stake to the heart. Are they good or are they bad? Dracula and his brides are the bad. They're the big bad of the movie. There's no way around it. Frankenstein is good. The Wolfman is trying really hard to be good, but Dracula is peer pressuring him into being bad. Dracula is just straight. The vampires are the bad guys. Tropes I love and tropes I hate. This is where the 80s, like, oh, mwah. I love a good montage of the gang preparing to fight the big bad. We see this in Lost Boys. We see this in this one. It's so, so good. I love it. It makes my heart so happy. And this one is a classic montage. They're like making their business cards, but it's just printed on like the biggest Xerox machine I have ever seen. They're writing letters to the army, and then Rudy makes a silver bullet in shop class. So good. And the music is so good. I don't know if I'm going to try and show it on YouTube, but I don't know. It may get copyright strike. So if you get to see it, awesome. If you don't, I tried. Tropes I hate. So we haven't had this one in a while, but Dracula hisses. He does the... I'm not a big fan of that. But that being said, this is a kid's movie. And so he's really playing into that stereotype, and he's doing the stereotypical universal Dracula thing. It's not my favorite thing, and I've made it clear on the podcast, so I feel like I needed to address it. But in this circumstance, I forgive it. The other one is the virgin trope. I really hate the virgin trope. But again, this is classic Dracula, so I see why they're doing it. I'm not a big fan. All right, let's do the ratings. Feels good to be back to the ratings, everybody. We haven't done it in September and October. We're gonna flip it, and we're gonna do this one first. How sexy or alluring are the vampires of the Monster Squad? Real quick, I hate doing this in a kid's movie or family movie. We're gonna give Dracula his honorary vamp point, and he gets one extra for being the man himself, for being Dracula. Plus he gets one because he's got 3 wives. So apparently he's got a thirst that needs a couple women to sate. I hope I said that in like a family-friendly way. So 3 out of 10. Solid, you know, he's not like the worst of the Draculas, but he's not here to be sexy. He's not here to like be sensual. How scary or evil are the vampires of Monster Squad? I mean, he's Dracula. He's the master to all the other monsters. He doesn't care about killing children. He even says, like, if the kids fight you, kill them. This huge centennial event has to occur just to wipe him out. That being said, he does get taken down by a bunch of kids, but he does take out a whole bunch of cops. So I don't know. I mean, yes, he's taken down by children, but the children had to have like all of these things line up exactly perfectly for it to work. The other thing I wanted to say was like he needed dynamite to blow up the clubhouse, which I'm like, It's a little cartoonish, okay? It's a little on the Looney Tunes side. He's got dynamite. But like I said, you had to have so many things line up to kill this Dracula. And even he's not even dead. He's just in limbo. So in 100 years, he can come right back. So I don't know. That being said, I gave him a 7 out of 10 stakes to the heart for scariness and evil. He's a pretty solid Dracula. Little on the cartoonish side, but he's a pretty solid Dracula. All right, my thoughts. This movie is saturated in nostalgia for me. It was such a huge part of my childhood, watching this movie over and over and over again. When I went back to rewatch it, I just knew like the sequence of events, even though it's been a little while since I watched it. It was really hard for me to look at it in a critical lens, to break it down. But talking about it, I just was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. It's time. It's time to bring it up. I'd love for it to be sort of like near the season finale, you know. And it's a solid way to start November. There are definitely some jokes that would not be written today. That is for sure. But nothing in the movie made me go, oh my gosh. Like there's nothing that you would have to, you know, get rid of to share with someone else. I will say, I don't know if I caught it before and had forgotten it, or I just never caught it. But the scene where they meet scary German guy and also he like brings these 3 boys into his house and shuts the door and gives them food. And I was like, nobody would do that now. But they say, wow, you sure do know a lot about monsters. And he said, yes, I guess I do. And he shuts the door and you see the concentration tattoo on his wrist. And I was like, oh my gosh, that actually that like sucked the air out of my chest. That is a dark and powerful moment in the movie that I don't think I ever caught before. So it really changed this character for me. I just felt so horrible for him. And the way he just like jumps in and helps these kids, even though everybody's just been treating him like a pariah for so long, it really changed the way I looked at this character. Obviously, I have a lot of questions as I'm really paying attention to this movie. Like, where does Dracula get dynamite? It's just like stick dynamite. Like, how do you and it's not just one, he has a whole bunch of dynamite. And then he has the thing, where he presses the thing down and like blows up the house. Like, what? This is like Acme supplies. What are the odds that the mom of the kid who knows about Dracula finds this Van Helsing diary? And then, you know, Dracula knows about it and he knows to come. I'm just like, how did this all line up? I'm so confused I want to know so many things. And then Dracula calls and like leaves a message for a child saying, yeah, I want to buy that diary. And they just write it on the message board, like, Sean, call Alucard, money for the diary. And they're like, no parent is going to get involved in this negotiation. And be like, what do you mean you're offering cash to my son? I was just like, what? Oh boy. But at this point in time, I really don't care. I have such a soft spot for this movie. This is a movie I will always be referencing. I already told you my favorite quote, but there's so many good quotes in this. And if you watch the Jacob episode, then you'll know the one that stuck out to him. I think it's the one that most of us refer to.
Take him in the Nards! Take him in the Nards! He doesn't have Nards! Do it! Wolfman's got Nards! Come on!
It is perfectly imperfect. And it was not fun to tear it apart, but it was fun to bring it to this podcast. And the odds that like one person has never seen this and then sees me review it and goes and watches it makes me so happy that I might introduce it to somebody who's not familiar with it. Okay, I did it. I did Monster Squad. I will definitely be watching it again, but I won't be tearing it apart anymore. I'll just be loving it for what it is. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to do another silly one that I was obsessed with. This one is from the 90s, and it's called Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood. And if you guys were with me in the 90s watching HBO's Tales from the Crypt, I love this one. Again, perfectly imperfect. So please come back and join me next week as we talk about it. Let me know down below what you would like to see me cover in 2025, because I need to start putting together plans. So I want to hear what you guys want. And is there anything in this movie that you didn't catch that I just brought to your attention? I would love to know that too. All right, guys, it's good to be back. I missed you. I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.
And big finish. Thank you.